Welcome everyone to In the Company of Charity, the podcast of the Daughters of Charity. This is Sister Elizabeth, and I am joined by my best friend.
Your best friend, whose also's name is Elizabeth.
That's right. That's right. I have another best friend. She has another name, but you're my best friend named Elizabeth.
Hey.
There you go, Elizabeth Ann. So, sister, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well.
I'm super excited about this interview.
I know you would be. I know, because it's really right up your alley. You did a great job with Ed Rogers talking about issues around mental health and his faith. It was really, I really enjoyed kind of the combination of recognizing that, the sciences or the issues around health, mental health especially, shouldn't exclude religion, but really that those things can go hand in hand. It's so much part of, I think, what we have to really look at when we're talking about mental health issues is that it's a holistic kind of thing. We need to see that people are more than just one thing or the other, but that reaching out to professionals as well as religious leaders, and the professionals themselves having a life of faith that helps inform their empathy and their compassion, I really enjoyed it.
I really geeked out on this one because I just love the idea of people's lives and their stories and the stories they tell themselves and how one's experiences really can shape and inform their whole lives and whether they want to allow the things that they're experiencing or their past to dominate who they are and going forward and making those steps. And I guess for me, I think what's really cool is that our mission as people who want to serve those who are poor, well, one of those poverties that we see is those who are suffering with mental health conditions, whether they're, something that's short or something that's chronic. And, I guess that's for me, and I think Ed brings this out as well, like seeing what we do as a ministry, and that it's something that is informed by science and evidence-based and all of those good buzzy words that social workers and mental health professionals use, but that you can't just ignore the spiritual components of those things, and because the whole person has to be healed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I really I liked from this is that I think we know it, but when you hear someone talk about it, someone who's in the profession, as you two were kind of talking about just the way you interact with people, and especially I think dispelling the stigma of mental health, because when we only see it as an illness, then we can dismiss it or we can see it as something I don't want. And, but when we start to see that there's so many dimensions to it, as you were saying, it could be something short term, it can be something chronic, something long term, something that can seem to be devastating. But I think the component of faith, that component that allows us to see there's something greater than ourselves also at work and can be a healing force, along with the science and the methodologies and all of that, to me is just, I think that is who we are. It's who we should be, bringing the humanity of Jesus Christ, bringing all of the things that faith give us, to just to the struggles that people have. I think that's really important. So I really enjoyed it. I think everyone's going to enjoy it.
We always welcome feedback and questions, and maybe, this will raise some questions for people that they have about the integration of the psychological and the spiritual, and the mental and the physical, all of that. So feel free to reach out to us, companyofcharity@gmail.com.
Okay, enjoy everyone.
Welcome to my good friend, Ed Rogers. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, I'm very glad to be talking with you.
We should, full disclosure, Ed and I have known each other for many years. We did a year of service up in New York through CAPCOR.
Indeed. That was 15 years ago, I think. So
So many, back when we were very, very young, out of college.
it didn't feel like it at the time, but it does now.
Now, we do have to shout out to Carla and Melissa and Marie, who we volunteered with. We love you guys and we miss you terribly.
Amen.
We also joked around that since there were 4 girls and you, that we prepared you to be a married man.
And I'm super glad. Just celebrated my 10-year anniversary. Whatever you did worked.
The cleaning and the cooking and all of the drama, we did okay.
And I believe it was you, Liz, that wrote a song about that experience.
Many. We'll have to share that with the podcast listeners at a different time.
There you go.
Now, listen, Ed, let's dive in.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about your work, some of your research, what you're doing now, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I currently work as a psychologist and the coordinator of the doctoral training program for the Baylor University Counseling Center. So what that means is we serve all of the students that come to Baylor University, which is in Waco, Texas, work with them on any of the mental health concerns or needs that they have, things like anxiety, depression, having trouble getting to classes or doing well in their classes. Those are the kind of beginning things, but then also even more intense issues like diagnosed mental health concerns, things like that. So that takes up a good bit of my time. And the other part of my time is spent working with our doctoral students, teaching them how to be better therapists at the center. So a whole set of things that I really love and enjoy, and I like getting to have a variety of different things that I do in terms of my role as a psychologist.
And when you were preparing to be a clinical psychologist, you did your dissertation on the integration of faith and mental health. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Did, yes. So it was actually the reason that I got into psychology was that I had been in youth ministry before that and really enjoyed working with young people in the church and helping them to grow and really deepen their formation in faith and as people. And it was the relational part of that, the relationships that I built with them, watching their relationships deepen with other people, helping them form relationships with other faithful adults that I really strongly cared about. And that's what took me into psychology. So coming from a faith background, I was really interested in looking at, well, how does psychology or psychologists and local faith communities partner together or work well together? And so the research that I did while I was in graduate school focused on what are the good things that are happening? How can we create and evaluate new methods for working together between the field of psychology and local church communities to help people who have mental health struggles who traditionally show up in church faster than they show up in a therapist's office?
I mean, I've always found it interesting because sometimes people think that there's some kind of, I don't know, that they don't go together, or that, if you have a mental health issue, it's more about, well, let's pray and get your faith in order. And if that's okay, then the rest of it is going to be okay.
Yes. And I think that's kind of like the story that I've heard a couple of times in sermons and all, where someone's drowning and God sends a helicopter and the guy's like, no, God will take care of it. And then God sends somebody in a boat to come pick him up. He's like, no, God's going to save me. And at the end of the day, he ends up dying. And then God says, I sent all these things. Why didn't you listen to them? I mean, I feel like that's kind of how it works in terms of therapy and mental health. Just because the person who has some training and ability to help is not a pastor in your church doesn't mean they aren't a way that God works in the world or can work towards healing for you. I also think if we really believe that there's one source of all things that are true, then you're going to end up at the same truth no matter which path you take. to get there. So if you are coming to the truth of what it means to be mentally healthy through religion and faith, wonderful. God is the source and author of that path. And if you're coming to what is healthy for you through a path that's led by psychology and scientific approaches to what helps people grow and improve, well, God's the author of that path of truth. So you're going to come to the same place by either path, or I believe that that's very much possible. So I think faith and mental health, or faith in the field of psychology, can be very complementary. There's nothing inherently in opposition about them.
Mm-hmm. I think it seems to me that there's a lot more conversation nowadays about mental health issues than perhaps even when we were going through school. There seems to be less of a stigma about that, which is good, because then people are able to reach out and get the help they need. And you're working with college students, and that seems to be a pretty prime time for some mental health concerns to crop up. What are some of the things that you're seeing the young people deal with?
So I think you're absolutely right. College is square in the middle of the times in life that many mental health issues surface. And even besides that, going from your family and kind of a situation that you've known for a while off to a more independent setting, it just kind of creates even more opportunities for things to go badly. In terms of what we see with college students, so there has been a lot of shift in the last 10 years. 10 years ago, there was more people were presenting with depression, and now it's very much more, the most common presenting concern of students coming to a counseling center is some form of anxiety. So I think if I'm trying to understand, well, what's behind this? Why has anxiety become so much more prevalent? And why are so many more people coming and seeking treatment for it? I think you can look at a couple of things that are wide societal trends. So I think one of the biggest things, and this is a soapbox I can get on, so I won't spend too long on it.
Please.
I think young people have less experience dealing with discomfort and suffering than they used to. I think there's many ways in which we've tried to protect people from having painful experiences in life, and that sounds like a good thing. In many cases it is, but if we do it too much, then people don't develop the skill for dealing with painful things in life. I think social media has not helped with that, because in many ways it's a quick way to kind of spend your time there, to get away from or to avoid things that are uncomfortable for you. But then also, if you feel like something's wrong, and kind of what you need to do is pay attention to it, look at it, figure out how to deal with it, and then go work through it. The quick and easy availability of so much media, one, lets you just get away and go consume some media for a while, and you kind of feel better about things in the short term, but doesn't fix your issue in the long run. But two, if you're feeling not good about life and you go to social media where everybody posts all the best things about their life, more convinced that something's actually wrong with you, or something's actually wrong with your life, because it doesn't look like what you see everybody else putting out there. So I mean, there's a lot of things that we could talk about in terms of what are college students facing, but I think that difficulty in dealing with pain, suffering, and distress, and the way that social media and media in general and technology interact with that, those would be the ones that I would point to first.
This is kind of an aside, but you're kind of an adventuresome, kind of outdoorsy guy. And I think that, for folks who want to challenge themselves and do hard things, that's one avenue is, gosh, you are going to fail a lot of times when you're doing things that are difficult. And so I think it's a good point.
And I think I'm just thinking about being outdoors. If you're really going to go explore or try and have some adventures, you're going to have to do new things, and new things on some level are inherently uncomfortable because you don't know how they're going to go yet. But then also there's all kinds of, I mean, anyone who spent significant time outdoors has stories about the camping trip that went horribly wrong, or that hike where everything fell apart, or something like that. And having that experience and over time watching it turn into, oh, I survived it. Oh yeah, and it wasn't the worst thing. Oh, actually, in retrospect, it's kind of really fun to tell that story. Like that whole developmental progression, I think, is really healthy. It allows you to take something that was painful at the time and turn it into a positive part of your life story. And I think that's something that is, I don't know whether it's hard, less people have that experience or kind of are willing to go through the hard experience and get to the other side, has been my impression.
Yeah, absolutely. And those pictures I see of you and your kids fishing, I mean, talk about something that is difficult, and the waiting and the maybe victory, maybe not.
Yes. Yep.
It's a interesting thing that parents could maybe take note of.
Yes. And I think one of the things I would say to most people is, if you really want your kids to be resilient, to be able to face challenges, overcome them, find the good stuff on the other side, we got to let them have challenges. We got to have certain times where we're not protecting them from all the difficulties of something. Or, sometimes you mentioned fishing, but with my kids, it's like, all right, if we're going to go fishing, then you got to actually fish with me for this amount of time before you take off and start exploring the woods while I'm fishing, because I want you to have to develop that patience for doing something that might be challenging.
And so to talk a little bit about your work mentoring these new doctoral students, it's that's another challenge where you have people who are coming in who maybe have certain ideas about what it's going to be like or who they want to be in the scenario.
So that's actually an incredibly smooth transition. Way to go. Because it's very much the same process. What we're trying to train them to do is to be able to really be with somebody in a time of distress, pay attention to some of the most difficult and painful experiences of someone else's life. And if you're going to do that, you have to be able to take care of your own internal discomfort too. And I think that's one of the hardest things for our students in training, is realizing, oh, I don't just get to learn a technique. I don't just get to, hear what the answer is and then give it to people. I have to train in order to be present with people who are suffering. And one of the things that I have them do that they don't like is we do lots of role plays where they're practicing interacting with the client, but it's in front of the rest of our trainers, and we give them feedback on it. And that's uncomfortable. I'm going to do a sample of my work. People are going to watch, and then they're going to tell me the good and the bad of it. But the more that they go through that, the more that they get used to it, and the more that they build that kind of internal stamina that they're going to need to work with people in their pain, people that are being vulnerable, and inviting them into stuff in their life that they don't really want to talk about with anyone, and that is painful to share. So I think if we're going to ask people to do that, we have to be willing to do that ourselves, and that's definitely part of the training process.
Is it a requirement that your students go to counseling themselves?
So the role that I have, I'm not part of their academic training program. They all go to a university to get their degree, and they come to the counseling center for their practical or kind of field experience. So we don't require that. It would be pretty atypical that a field placement requires that, but their academic program could require them to be in their own therapy. What I know just from having talked to a lot of people is many of them do go to their own therapy because it helps them, one, process their own experiences. And grad school is stressful, so most of the time that's all the excuse that you need to be in therapy, is just coping with
Right.
of graduate school. So yeah, I'd say most of them are in therapy, but we don't require it.
Yeah. And so just to switch gears into your own experience, there are plenty of people out there who are psychologists or therapists, mental health professionals, as a general rule. Some people have faith, some people don't. What do you see as your calling, or as how you process your work into your faith life, and what is your faith? How does that inform your work in a way?
Yeah. So there's a quote, I believe it's attributed to Saint Irenaeus, where he says, "The glory of God is man fully alive." Um, I think what I do helps people to become more fully alive. And so in therapy, I'm not usually directly trying to change anyone's religious belief. I'm not offering spiritual direction. I'm oftentimes not even explicitly talking about faith. But I think, again, people, you're one person, even if we talk about different aspects of you. So mind, body, spirit, those things are all connected. So if I'm helping you move towards health in your mind and your body and your spirit, then we're creating openings for God to come in. The more healthy you are, the easier it is to hear God speaking in your life. The more on a just human and social level that you're capable of interacting the way that you want to, of pursuing the things that are meaningful to you, then the fewer barriers there are between you and the life with God that you want. So I think whether or not I am talking with somebody explicitly about God or about faith, I see the things that I do as a therapist as paving the way for not just your growth as a human being, but also the opportunities that God has to really come into your life in a deep way.
That's excellent. And I think to myself often, as a professional church person, like that there's a place for that. But we also need really faithful, really solid, competent people who are doctors and psychologists and teachers and things like that, even if you're not necessarily proclaiming or evangelizing in that role.
So that's actually what you just said is pretty much directly the reason why I started thinking about going to school to be a psychologist in the first place, because I was working with students in my youth ministry, and I loved being part of the youth ministry. I liked doing those things. I liked building those relationships, but not infrequently I would come across one of our young people who was struggling with something that I just knew that I did not have the tools to help them with. And I knew that somebody did, and that somebody was probably some kind of therapist, but I didn't know how to deal with it. And the best thing that I could do was connect them with someone or give them resources for somebody that they could go to see as a therapist, and also try and get to know some therapists and understand a little bit about what they knew that could help me in my interactions with this person. And so, yeah, just like we need good doctors who are Catholic and understand things, and just like when you get helped to be healthy by a doctor, it's easier for you to engage in your life of faith. I think we really need good mental health professionals, and being able to work with a good mental health professional is oftentimes incredibly helpful in the other areas of your life, and maybe enables you to actually be at a youth group where you can talk to somebody, as opposed to not going because you're struggling with some kind of mental health concern that's getting in your way.
The one thing that comes to mind for me, as a daughter of charity and a sister, it's kind of our focus is to serve people who are most in need. And often when you think of that, you think of, oh, okay, the homeless person, the refugee, giving food to people on the street, those sort of basic material needs that folks have. But I think, equally as important is the mental health aspects of people's suffering. And I think that's a particular poverty that many are facing.
Yes, and I think there's levels on which it's a personal poverty and it's individual to people, and there's also levels kind of across cultures where we have, if you want to call it poverty, in those areas, in certain areas. I remember going on a mission trip when I was in college to Guatemala and seeing people who had very little but were joyful and healthy in their relationships and their connections. and their way of being with other people in the world, and thinking, oh, I know people back in the US that have all the material things they need. They're not lacking for money, but they have a poverty in kind of their own internal mental world, or they have maybe a poverty in their social relationships. And so I think you're absolutely right. This is an area that it feels like a calling to me to help people who need this particular assistance to move forward, become healthier, become more fully alive.
So what would you say to someone out there, maybe one, the person who's suffering and struggling, and then two, the person who might be moved to do something or has a friend who's struggling, and what recommendations would you give to that person also?
Okay. So I'll start with the person who is suffering themselves, whether they find themselves dealing with a lot of anxiety that gets in the way, keeps them from doing things, or maybe it's depression where they are just haven't been feeling good about life for a long time and have started pulling back from a lot of activities. There's a lot more than that, but whatever it is, if I was talking to that person, the first thing that I would say is, you are loved. And even if I don't know you, I have a firm conviction that God cares for you. And the fact that I'm running into you and getting to talk to you, maybe this is one person or one way that God is reaching out to you. And I think that I would then start to have a conversation about what is the thing that's wrong, what are the needs, and how can I be of assistance to you in helping you get to the things you might need. That may be very short and simple. It may be as simple as, sounds like you could really use meeting with a therapist. I can help you find a therapist that'll be a good fit for you. It might be something where I can help them, invite them to something that I'm a part of, a social group, a gathering, a church event, get them connected with other people. But I would start with first just affirming them, acknowledging that what they're struggling with is difficult and hard and real, because I think a lot of people that present with mental health or have mental health things, they get the message from a lot of other people that it's kind of just all in your mind. Hey, just stop thinking.
Right.
Or hey, just come and do this thing and then you'll get over it, kind of thing. And I think the main experience of that for someone who's struggling with a mental health difficulty is to feel like their issue is being trivialized or is not real, or the implication is it's so easy to deal with. You could just deal with it this way, which means, wow, you must really be terrible at dealing with life.
Oh, yes.
So I think the thing that I would say is affirm it, acknowledge it's real, acknowledge it's difficult, say that you care. I would say that I care about them in it, and then I would see if there's anything they want me to do, or maybe my call is just to be a friend to them, just to be present to them. So I think as you're listening, you can hear I've kind of shifted into the second one as well.
Yes.
I think the things that I would tell someone else to do are some of the same things that I would do if I sat down with someone. And that is, the first step would be focus on your relationship with them. Just taking what you have and being willing to be present with them. Be a good friend, encourage, support them. And I think being curious is a big thing too. Instead of hearing one or two things and then moving immediately to like, all right, what are we going to do? I think it's just good to ask, well, how is it for you? What does it feel like? When do things happen? Just be curious in a very friendly way. Trying to solve things for somebody, especially early on, is usually not helpful. Because if you could come up with some ideas and plans that would be really helpful and really change things for people the first time that you talk to them, they would have done it a long time ago, probably.
Exactly.
So we don't need to solve it for them, but just be present, be a good friend, be curious, affirm that it really is difficult for them. The next thing that I usually say to people is take care of yourself. If you're really going to walk through life being close and supporting somebody who has a mental illness, mental health concerns, it can take a toll on you too. So make sure that you are not taking care of somebody at the expense of taking care of yourself, you're not going to be very helpful to them for very long. So maintaining your own boundaries is an important thing. Also, accessing the sacraments, praying, maintaining your own relationship with God so that he can fill you up so that you can be of service to the other is a really important thing as well. And then I think maybe the biggest thing that I would say to people in that situation is remember that what happens for the other person is not your responsibility. You can be there for them as a friend, but what happens with them is not up to you and it's not your responsibility. If you are at a place with them where you know them well enough, you've been around, you can maybe start helping in a few ways. I would say one of the things you can do is just learn more about mental illness or learn more about the particular thing that they're dealing with yourself so that you can be a little bit better educated. Help them find resources in the community that you're in if you're in a position to do that. And don't forget that it doesn't matter what kind of mental health difficulty this person is struggling with, they have lots of strengths. People often forget that they have strengths and they get overly focused on the thing they're struggling with. So sometimes you can help people just by remembering yourself that they have strengths and occasionally reminding them if that's something that they could benefit from. And then I think the last thing is maybe saving the best for last, but pray for them.
Yes. Amen
Pray
to that.
with them too, if that's something that they want to do. I think somebody who's not close with God is maybe angry at God at the moment or is estranged from church coming up and saying, oh, you have this struggle. All right, I'll pray with you. Like, that's probably not helpful. They're probably just perceiving that as, okay, you're really not listening to me. But if the person is open to it, if they have a relationship with God, and if they want to pray with you, offer to pray with them. I think that can be a really powerful thing to do as well. So without going too long into it, those would be kind of the
Those were like 15 things, Ed.
They were.
So I hope people were taking notes.
Yeah, I know. Maybe that just tells you, okay, as a psychologist, I can think of like 45. So I was trying to trim it down.
I love it. And for me, the thing is that every person is called to reach out to others in the giftedness and the skills and talents that each of us has. And
Yeah.
you know, some of the best people are servers at restaurants and cashiers, and they have something to offer for people who are struggling too. And so, you know, for those who have that call to do what you're doing as a clinical psychologist, mental health professional, therapist, etc., like, go do that. That's great if you have the resources to do so and the drive and the call. But I think too, even just being a good friend, and everybody can be a good friend.
Yes. And I think one of the things that people lose first when they really start struggling with a significant mental illness is they lose connections and they lose relationships. And so being someone who sticks around or who helps invite them back into relationships, that's a superhuman thing. We do this all the time with everyone else. Why just don't not do it just because you find out that somebody's struggling with a mental health issue?
Yeah. Well, Ed, we could just keep going on and on, but we'll leave it at that for now. I think we need to invite you back to continue this conversation. But we thank you for taking the time. And if there's anything that you want us to put on the podcast or links or anything, feel free to pass those along. Thanks again. You're the best.
I'm glad to be with you.
This has been In the Company of Charity podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.